Hi there, everyone. My name's Max, and I'd like to thank you all on behalf of Vroman's Bookstore for coming to today's event. Today, we're lucky to have with us Corey Finkle and Shelley Couvillion, who will be talking about their new book, Your Future is Bright. Corey Finkle is a copywriter and author. A member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, Corey has a passion for writing books for children. Your Future is Bright is his first book, and he currently lives in Providence, Rhode Island. And Shelley Couvillion is an illustrator who works with watercolors and colored pencils. She found her love for illustrating when she used to draw while listening to her mother read books aloud to her as a child. She was featured in children's magazines such as Bravery, Illustroya, and Brio. Your Future is Bright is her picture book, and she currently lives in Los Angeles. No, she doesn't live in Los Angeles. She recently moved to DC, actually. We just had that conversation.
And I think you want to say it was her first picture book also.
First picture book, yeah. So today's event does include a little Q&A portion, so if you'd like to ask Corey or Shelley any questions, you can go ahead and click that Ask a Question button towards the bottom, and they will go ahead and get to those later in the event. And lastly, to purchase Your Future is Bright from our store, you can go ahead and click that green button down below, and it'll take you to our website. But with that all out of the way, I will go ahead and let them take over. Thank you all.
Well, hello again, Shelley.
Hi, Corey. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Mom.
Yes, hello, Darlene. Thank you so much for having and raising such a wonderful illustrator for a daughter.
So, Corey, I want to know, how did this book get started?
Yes, we've never talked about this before. So let me tell you the story. So it's funny when I normally tell this story to other writers, and the context is always don't give up. Okay, because you are sort of made to believe that either if you're good enough, you're going to write the book and get immediately discovered, and boom, you'll get published, or you'll keep writing books, and then one day you'll get discovered and you'll get published. But I kind of feel like it's much more this strange journey that you can't quite script out, and I'll even tell you about the moment that I really learned that, but basically, I wrote my first book as a senior in college, so over 20 years ago. And I kind of spent over a decade kind of just not really sending it out, or sending it out to a couple places and then feeling like I'd done a huge thing, and then being surprised that no one was bashing down my door to publish it. And then I started getting serious. And by getting serious, I joined critique groups. I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I began really taking the craft seriously, writing a lot more, and going to conventions and paying for critiques, and really just starting to feel myself surrounded by it. And then, let's say 5 years after that, I got an agent, and then a couple years after that, not a couple years, a couple months after that, we started pitching books out into the world. And the first one went nowhere. The second one, I had one agent or one publisher take it to the next step before saying no, it's not going to work. The third book, I had a publisher say, yes, I'm going to publish this. I just need you to make a couple tweaks, and that turned into 6 months and 2 complete overhaul rewrites before she changed her mind and dropped me. And it was a tragedy. And then at that point, my agent said, let's just start over. And that was really hard, because I felt like this was my lifelong dream. And to see it get this close before it went away was really difficult. And so we started the process. I wrote a new book. And at one point, I was sort of kind of arguing with my agent about it, as he was saying, why are you so impatient? Why aren't you accepting all this feedback? And I was like, please understand that I had been so close with that previous book, and now to have to start over, it was really rough. And he said, no, you're not starting over. The fact is, every single time you write a book, you get better for when you write the next book. And every convention you go to, you learn something that you take into the next process. And every time we send out a book, even when the editors say no, they say, hey, I like his writing though, so send me what comes next. So at this point, he's saying, I have this list of editors from all these big publishing houses who want to see what's coming next from you. That's not starting over. And it was quite an epiphany for me to realize, like, that it is a continuum, and everything you do helps you on your journey to it's a really important mindset. So we finished that book, pitched it, And the publisher, Christian Trimmer, who is alas out of the business now, but he took it and said, you know what, I don't really see how I could publish this book, though I like it, but I don't know how I'd market it. But there is a book I do want. I would love to have a beautiful, inclusive, rhyming graduation book that we could put on an end cap next to "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And boy, I do like the way Corey writes rhyme. Would he like to take a stab at it? And so right away, what my agent had said had just come true. And they're like, well, I mean, if you want to take a stab at this, if he likes it, he'll be your champion. If he does not like it, probably no one else will buy it though. So do you want to take 6 months to make a book like that? And it's like, yeah, you don't back away from a challenge like that. So this is Leo, everybody. He's one of the three people who I dedicated the book to. And so when I first kind of envisioned it, it was I having kids. You're really struck by how completely helpless they are when they're first born. They really can't do anything, and it just does not take long before they are, just completely their own person. And then I remembered myself sort of thinking about the process of growing up and being really scared by it, like looking through the crystal ball to see what it was to be an adult and say, "Oh my God, there's so much work ahead! Yikes!" So I combine those two together for a first draft called "You'll Be a Success." And the premise was like, hey, kid, are you worried about growing up? Don't be, because I have already seen how far you have come. And then there's a lot of rhymes about how when you were a baby, you couldn't walk and you couldn't talk and you couldn't really feed yourself. It was, you could really do anything. And now you're this, vibrant human being. So compared to that transformation, this is nothing. And my agent came back. He's like, okay, good start. And then told me the whole thing was wrong. Because he very astutely pointed out that a book about graduation should be forward facing. And this book was past to present facing. And you don't want to look backwards if you want to sort of wax philosophic about what you could do someday.
Yeah.
And so I started again with this now forward-facing look, where we started talking about potential careers, and that was what we sent to Christian. And sure enough, he wrote back, and he's like, "I love it. I just need you to change the beginning. I need you to change the ending, and you need to rework the entire middle section." And
oh no!
And I remember the notes. Just look at that whole middle section, like the 2 pages that he just kind of highlighted and said. This needs work. You're like, oh my goodness. But his point was I had included a you character in it. By referring to you, that means that the reader, the person reading the story to the kid is a character, because I'm saying there were verses like, I know that you'll be great because I've watched you grow. I'm your number one fan. I believe that you're going to be huge. And like, we don't want an adult present in this. That don't insert yourself in the narrative. Make it all about the kids, which is a good note.
Yeah.
And then I've talked to you about this a couple of times, Shell. That I don't even. Is it okay that I call you Shell? I just kind of nicknamed you by default. I apologize about that.
That's fine.
That once the shape, once I came up with this, once I went with this format of, here's who you are now. So here's who you could be tomorrow. I wrote the entire middle section was just a series of verses about the first 2 lines. The first rhyme were, here's who you are now. And then the second 2 lines were, here's who you could be tomorrow. And my whole thing when I write in verse is that once I pick a rhythm, a meter, I am militant about sticking to it from that point forward. So if you look, every single rhyme in Your Future is Bright goes da 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 da, 11 syllables, the first stress on the second syllable. And now some people aren't that rigid with it, but I am, because I want you as the reader to read 2 lines, 4 lines, and then basically be able to sing the book from that point forward. Because it drives me crazy when I'm reading a book and then all of a sudden a lazy syllable comes in that just throws you off, and all of a sudden it becomes a chore to read, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So because of that, since every verse was now the first two lines were the present, the next two lines are the future, it started to feel like it was just kind of a treadmill rather than a story. And so he challenged me to mix it up, and that's why you'll see, in the book now, there's one verse that's just a laundry list of potential careers, and there's one where the artistic section, each line is a different thing. I wanted it to not only I wanted to be able to mix up the meter of it, but also to give you as the illustrator a lot of different spreads and a lot of different ways to conceive of spreads, and that is my very long-winded way to answer the question of how this came to be.
Well, I think it's really interesting, especially considering I know a lot of people think it sounds easy when you're reading children's books. It sounds easy to write a children's book, but there's so much that goes into it, and so many changes and so many rewrites, and it can get so demoralizing. And so to get to the end of that and to actually have a book out in the world is
I know,
makes
it's
it
amazing.
extra exciting. Yeah.
And actually, I put a lot of extra pressure on myself. Like, I think this ended up being true, but I try not to put the same rhyme in a rhyming book. So, so I think the first rhyme is great and first rate, and I do not think there's any other rhyme in the book that is an 8 rhyme.
Oh, okay.
And again, it feels like, I don't know that anyone would notice if I did. It's possible that by the end maybe something snuck back in, but I try really hard not to. And this is just to speak to your thought about it being easy. And then I was explaining to my kids the other day, I also I think word repetition, if it's not on purpose, feels lazy. And so I try to avoid that. You can't always do that. The words could and might and tomorrow show up a couple times in this book because I'm forward facing and I need one syllable words. What can I do? But the word, like the first verse where we talk about the kid, the athlete, is a good example where I have the word run in my back pocket. I know this kid is a runner, but I can only use it once. And so if you think the minute you get out of bed every day, you're bursting with energy, ready to play, you run. So I say run. You run at full speed as you zip place to place. And so the word zip is there because I needed something that I couldn't, that wasn't run. And then maybe tomorrow you'll get to behold your fearless attempt as you race for the gold. And so I had run, race, and zip. And I was really I worked through all of the different iterations to see which one fit best. And, to run for the gold, you run for the gold, you do. Do you race for the gold? You kind of do that more. And so those are just one example of the many choices. Okay, enough about me. Because here's the question I have for you. One thing that really struck me was I had this is unique to the other books I've written, Shelley, that I didn't have any idea what the illustrations would be. Because whereas I tend to write a lot of plot, this was much more, I was calling it an ode to childhood. And so I had no idea what it would look like. My ideas were very Cisse. If I talk about you being a detective, I pictured the kid dressed in a trench coat. That's all I had. And when the book announcement came out, it said, this book is about a class of children as they go through the world. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was a class of children. How funny. That's my first of many revelations about what the story was. So I guess my question to you is, how did you go about illustrating it? Like what was the what's the process of giving a visual language to something that had no guideposts?
Well, I'm actually really thankful because I had a lot of help on that. It's as you know, it's my first book, and the publishers actually asked if they could do a layout for me. Most illustrators actually really like to have a nice, like a manuscript that isn't too tight on what you're illustrating, just so we can have freedom to explore what we can add to the story. And this manuscript is great like that. It being my first book, though, I was feeling a little bit like, oh no, what do I do? So, I mean, I'm sure I would have come up with something eventually, but the publishers were really great. They gave me a layout. They gave me a lot of suggestions.
What do you mean by layout?
And they added like a flow to it. Oh, they gave me a whole PDF of like, oh, we could put some spots here. This is what we think like might go here. Maybe we'll talk about this or this or this. And so there was still a lot of room for me to play in that and add my own sort of story ideas. But it was nice because I kind of had like a format to follow already. And they did let me kind of go a different way from that on a couple pages. But it was super helpful to have that. And so after that, we go to thumbnails, which is where I make, they're supposed to be little sketches, but I draw them all out and it takes me forever. That's just my process. I have to draw everything out to see where it goes. Otherwise, I have a hard time visualizing it in my head. So everything has to be drawn out. I have to go through all the different iterations of what a page might turn out to be. And specifically the page that you were mentioning where the kid might turn into a detective or spy. I actually went through 10 or 15 really intricate thumbnails for that page. It was taking me forever before I finally was like, well, I'm actually running out of time at this point. So I need to simplify it. And I cut it down, and I think the page works a lot better. They also actually had me simplify that page more than I had it already. But I think it's much cleaner and much easier to see what's going on, and it's a stronger page because of the editorial input I had from them.
Sure.
Yeah. So after we do thumbnails, actually, rewind. Before that, I had to start with a cast of characters because I wanted to see who they all were and make sure they all stood out from each other. And I started with colors and shapes and made sure that, we had kids of different heights and kids of different skin tones and kids with different, I tried to make them as stand out from each other as they could while still like, you see them on a page and they're not clashing, because 8 characters is actually a lot to keep track of and keep, the colors all nice together. And so there was a lot of that before we got to everything else. Each character, I named them all. I gave them all different personalities and did sketches of all of them, facial expressions that they might have to go along with that, and kind of just make them feel more real before I got them onto the page and decided what they were going to do,
Yeah.
So after the thumbnails, then we did more thumbnails and we tightened everything up, and then everything went onto the watercolor paper. And I feel like, if I'm remembering it correctly, I went from thumbnails to getting all the pages fully painted in 2 or 3 months, which felt like quite a lot to me because I had to finish 2 of these, like a spread here, like 2 of them per week. And so it was a lot. I think I mismanaged my time a little bit on that one, but I definitely, I learned a lot from it, and I still tried to give it as much love and as much attention as the pages could, as I had time to give them. And then after that, I was like, I am so tired of this process. I think all of my pages are terrible, and I don't want to do anything else to do with them, because there's a point in creating where you love your work, and then there's a point where you hate everything that you've made and you think
absolutely, yes, absolutely,
and you might as well just throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
And so I was at that point where I was done with all of it. I wanted to throw it all in the trash, never see it again. I thought it was going to be the worst looking book in the world. And then after that comes the cover, and then we have to go through the process for the cover. And I was so done by that point. But thankfully, with our editor's help and the art directors and everything like that, by the time we got done with the cover, I was excited about it again. And I really am happy with how it turned out. I can't remember her name, but the person who did the layout for the book and everything just did such a fantastic job on it. And yeah, that's the story of the book from my side.
So I'm going to be really pretentious for a second. And I'll tell you that my favorite book of all time is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And there's a section in the book where the main characters, who are not likable characters, go off on this. They rent a house in France or whatever. I don't remember exactly where they are, and they decide to take painting lessons. And so the Count Vronsky takes painting lessons from this artist, and the artist hates every painting he has ever made, even though he is considered a master. And then by contrast, Vronsky starts painting, and everyone right away just says, "Oh, everything is wonderful. It's so good. He's so good." And like, "Oh yeah, he's painting Anna, and it's so wonderful." And the professor that I studied this book with kind of juxtaposed that. That is Tolstoy's sort of discussion on artists, and he feels like real artists are very critical of their own work. Like you're always looking for flaws, and you're attaining perfection you can't have. Whereas someone who's just going to write something, be like, "Isn't this fantastic?" Like they may be okay at what they're doing, but they're not necessarily going to aspire to a higher level. So I do feel like if you're really into something, if you really want to be good at it, you're gonna hate your work for most of the process. Well, one last question before we move on, please.
Yeah.
What were you gonna
say? There's one or two of these spreads that I absolutely still love. Okay, maybe 3 of them. But generally about 6 months to a year after I make something, I'm totally done with it. I hate it, and I never want to see it again. Yeah.
I hope you get over that, because I feel like we're going to be reading this one a couple times. I wondered, was there a specific reason why you had 8 characters?
I think because I actually don't have my copy next to me here, but there's a set of things that you could be in the front. Yeah. And so there's 8 characters to go with that 8 set. And actually one of the pages, the kid who does basketball, right, and soccer, he was supposed to be on the left page there, but they actually changed it so that we have the kid who's running place to place. He's actually running onto the next page. But other than that, each kid has their own spread.
I love that. Yeah. As I said, I'm pretty good with words, but I'm not good with art, and I'm not good with layout. And so watching for 2 years is, you created a visual language for the story. And then, as you say, all the people from Macmillan's side, with the layouts and with the call out text, which I know you did, but I assume they gave you some feedback on that.
Yeah.
Like they just added so much nuance to the story that I didn't see. And it's been so wonderful to watch. And I know I'll read the story, but I do want to also point out that one of your initial steps was to draw this huge spread to just kind of see all the characters moving. The similar version is right over your head that became, the first spread of the book. Yeah. And, but there was an initial version. It was the first thing I was sent. And it was, this is what Shelley's thinking, this is the cast of characters. What do you think? And yeah. And it was so fun, and it was so vibrant. And I was like, oh my God, the story's coming to life. And I made it the background of my computer. And I just want to tip up my screen to say that there it is right there. My wife had it framed with these beautiful colors in it. And it's funny, we are terrible at hanging things. But once that came into the house, my wife was like, well, that has to go on the wall in a prominent spot. And then she's been actually hanging art all over the house since then. It's been really, really cool. So,
well, I'm glad it went home to stay with you. Honestly, these sadly are going to go in my drawer afterwards. And so it makes me so happy that one of them has found a home.
It definitely has. It's not going anywhere. So let me see if I can share my screen, because I have a thumbnail and I can read the story to whoever's here. Oh, sorry, I got to pick this. Okay, here we go. All right. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Shelley, okay, great. All right, so here's the book. And as before, I wanted to stop on this page. So I've had this file on my computer for a little less than a year. I think I got it in the summer. But this page was the most important page to my son, who wanted to know who it was dedicated to. And I didn't want to tell him. I wanted him to see it in the book for the first time. So he tried. He is the inspiration for that detective page where it said, no secret can ever stay hidden for long. And it initially said, no present can ever stay hidden for long, because it was speaking of his sort of supernatural ability to sniff out any present that's hidden in the house, for a holiday or for a birthday. But he went on Amazon once this was available for pre-order and looked at the look inside. He was hoping this page would be here. But at any rate, so Jill is my wife, Leo and Sally are my son and daughter, and I had to dedicate this to all of them because I didn't know if I'd ever get another book published. And I couldn't risk it. Okay. So anyway, here we go. Today is a triumph. It's awesome. You're great. The things you've accomplished are truly first-rate. Your efforts have made you stand out from the crowd, so puff out your chest. You deserve to feel proud. Amazing adventures are coming to you, and people are eager to see what you'll do. Your future is waiting. Which path will you choose? There's no way to know, but there are a few clues. As soon as you get out of bed every day, you're bursting with energy, ready to play. You run at full speed as you zip place to place, a grin of delight plastered over your face. So maybe tomorrow we'll get to behold your fearless attempt as you race for the gold. Or maybe you'll earn adoration and fame in basketball, soccer, or some other game. But while there's a chance you'll be known for your feat, the list of your options is far from complete. You're incredibly strong. No secret can ever stay hidden for long. So maybe you'll be a detective or spy, discovering secrets as people walk by. And then there's your very refined sense of taste. It'd be such a shame if that skill went to waste. You could be a baker devising new sweets to serve in a diner where everyone eats. You have an artistic and passionate soul, and that could be how you discover your role. You might write a novel that's loved and adored, or star in a movie that wins an award. You might paint a masterpiece stunning and grand, or play lead guitar in a rock and roll band. You're saddened whenever a classmate gets hurt. If someone were freezing, you'd give them your shirt. Perhaps you'll find happiness taking the lead, committing yourself to help people in need. If you see injustice, you don't kid around. You fight for what's right until answers are found. Tomorrow, you might offer voters a choice to opt for a leader who gives them a voice. This might be what happens, but then maybe not. Your interests could alter. It happens a lot. Professor, biologist, architect, nurse, astronomer probing the whole universe, accountant, mechanic, librarian, vet, or something that nobody's thought to do yet. Whatever you choose, it will always seem smart, as long as you follow your generous heart. When someone needs kindness, you answer the call, and this tells us maybe the best news of all. No matter what path you select in the end, you'll always be known as a wonderful friend. Don't ever stop dreaming and set your sights high. Tomorrow will come in the blink of an eye. So follow your instincts to do what feels right, and you can be sure that your future is bright. Yeah, so that is that. That's our bookshelf. So
I love it.
I do too. I'm really happy with it. I really am. Okay,
so I actually,
yeah.
Sorry. I think I'm going to do some drawing now, and we're taking suggestions for animals and for, thank you guys, and for jobs that kids might do in the future. So if there are any kids out there who want to put a suggestion in, I know we have a suggestion for a dragon, which is the one I'm going to do first.
So we got dragon.
And if there's
Leo's
a suggestion
right here,
for a dragon doing a job.
Do you have a job that you want to suggest? Oh, he had dragon firefighter. Does that work?
Dragon firefighter, yes. And so if anybody else wants to put a suggestion in to the chat, I don't know if there's any other kids out there watching. Let's see. And actually, Corey, I have another question for you.
Oh, sure.
While I'm drawing, because I like to draw and talk. What is the weirdest job you've ever had, or the most interesting job? Because I know it took you a bit after college to kind of find your feet in publishing, and you were writing the whole time, but I assume you had other jobs along the way.
Yeah. So I did work in television promotions for a while.
Oh,
So I worked for channels like TLC and BBC America and Travel Channel. And so it would be my job to oh, Shelley, just there's a lot of sun on your seat, so on your
is it
page, so
very bright?
we can't
Okay.
really see the
Yeah.
markings.
Let me turn this off. Yeah, I think my camera has not readjusted to, let's see if it'll readjust when I do this.
That
There
is,
we go. Oh. Here, I can take it and get to a place with a little bit less brightness, then it will be able to adjust, hopefully. Let's see. Ooh. Is that too far down? Can you still see that? Let's see.
Yeah, we see that.
Barely, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got
right.
spoiled.
I know. Yesterday the lighting was perfect. I thought it was or a couple days ago I thought it was too dark. Let's see. Oh, now we can see it a bit better.
That's better.
Hopefully it doesn't adjust to being way too bright again. All right.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess so I was the guy who was writing the commercials that would go on TV to get you to watch the next episode or of what's coming next.
Oh,
and,
okay.
What I always found funny about that was it actually really solidified my desire to be an actor as opposed to anything, not actor, to be a writer as opposed to any other thing in the arts, because it really is a writer's medium. I remember I was advertising a show, and it was kind of a sad show. The guy was it was someone trying to help this family, and the family was in trouble, and the guy was really sad, and he was probably depressed, and the person who's helping was really doing his best, but the show spent most of its hour really kind of helping this man find his self-esteem. And so I wrote a promo that reflected that, saying this is a real challenge. Is he going to have success? And I had, the music was a little dissonant, and then the feedback came back and they said, boy, this is kind of a downer, can you make it happy?
Oh, no.
And there's nothing at all happy about it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a depressing episode, but they want it to be happy.
Yep. And so I put circus music behind it, and I had rewrote it. So it's, this man has 2 kids, 5 pets, and a world of trouble. Da 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 da, and it was kind of insane. But
oh no.
And then the strangest job was my first professional writing job. The first time anyone ever paid me to write. I got hired by a company that made lists of text messages that they then sold to other companies so that those companies could give them away as part of a subscription service. So I would write 50 animal facts for kids so that they could then package them and sell them as a animal fact a day texted to you for a nominal fee. And one of the things I had to do is I had to write horoscopes for tween girls. So I had to write, just random horoscopy messages that all were positive and had common, modern slang in it, so that no one ever felt like they were being threatened. But also, if you think that astrology is real, let me assure you that at least in this case it was not, because I was just writing these things, and then I would apparently they would sell them as Sagittarius one day and then Pisces the next month, and anyway.
Oh my goodness,
that's probably the weirdest one.
Oh man.
What about
writers? You never know what kind of jobs you're gonna get.
Yeah. Did you have weird jobs as well?
Let's see. I don't think any of mine would qualify as weird. I'd say one of my favorite jobs was here we go. one of my favorite jobs was working at Downtown Disney doing caricatures. That was fun. And I worked in a trophy shop for a little bit, making trophies and running a laser and this does not look like a ferret. I'm drawing a ferret, super ferret now. And I do not think this looks like a ferret. I can't apparently remember what they look like. Oh, they've got a little mask. No wonder they're perfect at being a little super pet. Oh, now it looks like a ferret.
All right, so you should be warned that you better answer these questions honestly, because your sister is in the chat making sure that everything is correct.
She will. She keeps me on my toes.
That's good. So
no, I didn't work at Disneyland though. I worked at Downtown Disney.
What
I
is
never
that?
worked in Disneyland proper. What?
What is Downtown Disney?
Oh, it's like the little mall area outside of Disneyland.
Oh.
It's where they have all their shops and some food places, and if you don't want to go to Disneyland but you want to go around Disney, you go there.
Do you have any memories of any particularly strange customers that you had while drawing caricatures for people?
I did do a caricature for a kid who was the voice of the dinosaur for Lost in Time. Or sorry, not Lost in Time.
The Land Before Time?
The Land Before Time, yes. That was exciting. That was pretty fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
God, he's got to be
and then
our age now.
Right. Nothing else too much happened. Disney's pretty good about security.
Good. All right. So, would you mind showing us in close up these pictures you made?
Oh yes, I actually, the firefighter dragon doesn't need. And this is a fire truck. I'm so sorry. The firefighter dragon actually doesn't need any clothes because he's a dragon, but despite what it looks like, he's pouring water onto the house, not fire.
That's good. We had a long discussion about it this morning as to what breath weapon the dragon would have to be an effective firefighter.
And then we have a super ferret.
That's pretty cool.
So if you guys have any questions for us, you can put them into the question section down there at the bottom. Or there's a question already, Corey. My sister says, what's the next book idea?
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that. I feel like if you don't have at least 3 or 4 percolating, at least for me, if I don't have 3 or 4 percolating, I tend to feel like I'm stagnating. I can tell you that I just sold and got my advance for my second book. It is thank you. It is called Pop's Perfect Present, and it's kind of a Father's Day-ish kind of story, though it doesn't ever talk about Father's Day per se. But it's about a kid. The publisher has decided it would be a girl, but it didn't have to be. But it's kind of cool that it is, and she just kind of loves her dad and wants to do something cool for him, and so she decides that she's not going to just get him a present, and she draws him a picture, but it's terrible, and so she wants to do something really cool. So let's take him out and have him do something that he really loves. He loves fishing, so we're gonna go catch a huge fish together. And so they go out fishing, and it does not work at all. They don't catch anything, and so she's bummed. And he's like, "Oh, that's okay, Slugger." And she's like, "Oh, right, Slugger. He loves baseball. I'll let him teach me how to hit a home run." And so they go out and they try to hit a home run, and she can't do it. And so, all right, that's terrible. And he's like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Oh, he's getting cranky. I better go serve him lunch." And so she goes to feed him lunch, and that's a disaster. And then and then she decides, well, maybe we'll write a song, and that's a disaster. And everything they try to do just is failure after failure after failure after failure. And finally, she's like, "Oh my God, what a disaster this was!" And then she's going home and says, "I'm sorry, Dad. What an awful thing this was." And he's like, "No, I got to do all my favorite things in the world with my favorite person in the world. This was the best day ever." And she realized, so her realization is the best gifts come from the heart, right? So she goes upstairs and uncrumples that piece of art that she had made for him at the beginning of the day and changes it around so that it just adds some scenes from the stuff they all did together that day. And then she gives it to him again, and he's like, "This is perfect." And so Pop's Perfect Present is just her and her willingness to spend time with him. Yeah,
I'm sure all the dads out there will agree to that.
I like to think so. Yeah, especially as they get older, the time becomes pretty precious. How about you, Shelley? Is there another project on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a reader right now, which, for those of you who are unfamiliar, a reader is for a little bit older kids. And these ones specifically are reader books, that like help teach kids how to read. Um, but this one's for older kids who can't quite read at the level that they're supposed to. And normally those books they're all right, but they feel a little rushed. They feel a little cheap maybe. So
Yeah.
this publisher wanted to get, it's a set of 6 books. So there's 6 different illustrators, and they wanted books that felt like really nice picture books. So they tried their best to make the wording sound more realistic. Often those books are like, see Jane run far, or something like that. So
Yeah.
they did a lot with trying to make the wording sound more natural. And I'm really excited about that. And I think the concept of it is really cool.
That's fantastic.
And then I'm working on writing as well, not as much as you, but it's hard.
Well, I was thinking of writing a blog. I have a blog on my website, and I feel like I might write one with the title that why there are no typos in picture books. And it's because when you have 15,000 words or 50,000 words for a novel, mistakes are going to get through. But for a picture book, every single word has to be perfect, and that is difficult.
It is. It's like the graphic design of writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Chris. Hi, Chris. Chris says that I need to illustrate your next book. So obviously you can make that happen, right?
Well, I will tell you,
That's how publishing works.
By way of answering the question, with the question I get the most when you tell people to write picture books is, how do you pick the illustrator? And you're like, well, if I'm self-publishing, then I can do whatever I want. I have complete creative control. But and this is important. When you work with a publisher, you are selling a book to a publisher, and then you become a part of the creative process. You are not the sole creative force. And so publishers are, and when they look to buy a manuscript, they are looking for someone who can collaborate. So one of the early mistakes you make as a writer who does not illustrate is you tell them exactly what you want the art to look like all the time. Illustration note, in this first page, it should be, and no, as you yourself said, you wouldn't enjoy that necessarily. If I was like, no, page 3 needs to look like this, you'd be like, whoa, I have ideas too. And then even when picking an illustrator, I would say I would have had no idea what to look for with this first book. And so thankfully they freed me from that burden. They just kind of wrote to me and said, great news. We found the illustrator. Her name is Shelley and she's wonderful. Here's her website. And I remember we looked at it and I saw the way you drew. I feel like you did one for a book. Was it Alice in Wonderland? You had an illustration on your website for Lion, the Witch, and the Wart. There's something, I can't remember because it was so long ago. But at any rate, I remember just seeing how the characters looked at each other and the affection they had. And I remember thinking, wow, there's no context here. This is just a kid, an adult and a child. And they're just looking at each other and you can see the warmth. They're like, man, that's what this book needs. And so what an astute choice to pick you for that. Your colors are wonderful, but also just the way you express the warmth and affection.
Thank you. Well, I think they made a wonderful choice in me as well.
And then for the second book, they sent me a list of 5 illustrators, and this was an interesting thing. I don't know where they get this list from. That is just not my bailiwick. But we looked at the 5. I had a first choice, and then I showed my wife the 5, and she had a first choice, which happened to be the same. And then I expressed that to Christian, and the next day or 2 days later, that illustrator followed me on Twitter. So that seemed a little coincidental. And so I sort of sent her a note, and then I wrote to Christian about it, and he's like, she's supposed to keep it a secret. So apparently she was their first choice too. So I think, and the same thing with casting for a movie, I think sometimes the illustrator and the project find each other.
Yeah.
And please don't get me wrong, you would be a wonderful illustrator for that book.
No, I know that you can't do that.
Yeah,
Don't worry. It wasn't a serious question.
I know, but I'll say this, if everyone purchases a copy of the book, maybe we do so well that they need to put us back together for another project. That is possible.
This is
Just
true.
saying.
This is true. Hey.
So,
but also, what was I going to ask you? I don't know. It's gone. It's gone. It was in my brain for a second, and now it is not.
No problem. Are there any other questions out there? Feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I think we might be out of material here.
Blog. What's your blog?
Oh, it's just my name. So CoreyFinkle.com. You will find some stuff featuring Shelley's art that she apparently doesn't even know about.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me.
You made some stuff for school.
I made some games, some downloadable games, and word searches and mazes and things. And of course, there's also a song. I don't know if anyone knows the band Guster, but they're one of my favorites. And was it during this year of quarantine? I guess they got bored and they wanted to do something, and so they kind of set up this wish site where they said, if anyone has a wish, just kind of write it here and save a nominal fee for how much you'd be willing to pay us to do it. And they were expecting things like have this member of the band teach you how to play a song, or this one guy has a great recipe for cookies, or maybe they'll do a cameo for you, have them wish someone happy birthday. Yeah. And I wrote, and I was like, man, I'd love it if the lead singer maybe wanted to write some music, using the words from the book as lyrics, and then compose a song. And they wrote back, he's like, sure, yeah, we'll do that. I was like, okay. And so this band that I've loved since college wrote a song based on our book. And so with that, I had to do something with it. So I hired a friend of mine who's a gifted editor, and he sort of used your we'd been given all of your illustrations as like a little toolkit. And so he was able to cut it together, and it's really, really beautiful.
I need to see that. That was the other thing that I haven't looked at yet that I need.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, CoreyFinkle.com.
So I think we're about ready to wrap up. Are we looking for Max? There's Max.
Oh, hello. So we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Corey and Shelley, you were both incredible. Thank you so much. Everyone in the audience, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. But with that all out of the way, I hope you have a good day. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.